And thank you to everyone who made this such a powerful meeting. Welcome to the November General Meeting Health and Wellbeing session. It is an honor to have been asked to anchor this segment of the program. My name is Orode Duati. I'm a pediatrician and a women's health advocate. And we are fabulously blessed in this QCOGA community to have the voices on women's health and well-being in Nigeria and the leading actors and voices on women's cancer in Nigeria with us on this segment. I'm going to say as little as possible because we really do have a lot to learn from these amazing women. Before we get to the panel on cancer in women, we're honored to have Dr. Kemi Da Silva Ibru, who will speak for 10 minutes on the WARIF hotline for victims of sexual harassment and violence. And can you take it away?
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Orode. And hello to everyone that's still on this call and ready to listen to us for the next few minutes. I think I'm going to very quickly share my screen. I hope I'm allowed to. There we go. So my task today is to spend a few minutes talking about the work I do with the organization I founded in 2016 called the Women at Risk International Foundation. The acronym is WARIF. Very simply, this was in response to the high prevalence of rape, sexual violence, and trafficking of girls and women in communities across Nigeria. As some may know, my background is in health. I am a practicing obstetrician and gynecologist. I've been working in this space now for over 20 years. And whilst working with this specific target audience, I have met over the years disenfranchised women and girls from different parts of Nigeria that have endured horrific acts of violence. In Nigeria today, statistics will tell you that 1 in 2 survive sexual violence as their first experience between the ages of 15 and 19. 1 in 4 girls before the age of 18 would also have experienced at least one sexual encounter. And if we expand the age group to 15 to 49 and include other horrific acts like female genital mutilation and child marriages, we're dealing with 1 in 14 as a statistic. Remember, we're 200 million people in Nigeria, and half of us are women. And 49.2% of that, women and girls, have an average of, I believe, 64% under the age of 24. When we ask ourselves why it occurs, we're all familiar with the reasons. We live in a rape culture. We know that. We know we live in a patriarchy where women are subjugated even when they're not asked to perform these acts. We also know that we have cultural norms and practices that encourage the harmful practices against women and girls in many communities across the country. We know that many communities survive a shame. We know that many girls and women cannot speak out because of the stigma. More families appear to be more concerned with the, if you will, hypocrisy of their family name than allowing these girls to seek justice and allowing them access to care. The youngest girl that I've had to treat is under the age of 2. The youngest I've had to we have challenges of health infrastructure. Many of us are familiar with that. We know we also have challenges with service provision, especially in this particular niche, where women need special attention. They need forensic medical examinations, for instance. They need post-exposure drugs if they're exposed to rape and other acts of violence unprotected. We're familiar with law enforcement. We know we have challenges in that arena as well. We have all heard stories about police stations where women are hesitant to walk in because they're fearful that they would again be accused of these acts as opposed to being protected by the law. We know about our laws. We've all heard of the VAP Act. This is a law that's been implemented across the country. I believe we have about 26 states now out of 36 that have implemented this law. And we're hopeful that across the country, each state would implement this law in protecting not just men and women, but children as well. When we talk about WARIF and the reason why we do what we do, it's in response to these atrocious acts. We work very specifically under 3 pillars. We have the health pillar, the education pillar, and the community service pillar. Under our health pillar, we have a rape crisis center. This is in Yaba in Lagos State, for those that are not resident in Lagos, which is the epicenter of Lagos. Here we offer post-incident services. What this means is that the immediate medical attention, the cuts and bruises of these women are attended to. Forensic medical examinations are carried out if women are seen within a timely window of 72 hours. And we're fortunate enough to have a DNA lab now in Lagos that we can send the specimen to. We also offer testing, HIV, pregnancy tests. We offer post-exposure drugs, again, if we see women within that time window of 72 hours. Psychosocial counseling is also offered to all women and children, and these are all age appropriate by trained counselors. This range from one-on-one counseling to monthly group counseling sessions. And since the COVID pandemic, we pivoted and have started also offering virtual online services. In addition to the traditional services under the purview of a rape crisis center, we've expanded our services to include welfare. So now we're able to offer shelter. We're offering legal aid for women that would seek accountability and justice. And we're also offering simple vocational skills for women that sadly are financially constrained, and therefore they make poor choices because they have no other. The center's open 6 days a week, and to date, since 2016 December when we opened, we've seen an average of 2,735 beneficiaries. Under our educational pillar, our focus is both the secondary level as well as the tertiary level students. We also focus on 2 gender, very important to emphasize including boys and men in the conversation when you speak of gender-based violence. With the Boys Conversation Cafe, this after-school mentoring program is implemented across all secondary schools. The idea being to change the negative mindset that already exists with many boys because they're also socialized in homes of abuse and violence. We've trained over 1,500 boys, and we've been able to see the change not only in their behavior and their attitudes, but also the ripple effect in their communities as they become more protectors of women as opposed to potential perpetrators. With girls, again, between the ages of 13 and 16, being the most vulnerable age group, we also design and implement programs that we take into secondary schools. Idea behind this is to empower these young girls. Again, many girls are socialized from such a young age that they don't appreciate these acts as being wrong. We have girls as young as 7 and 8 saying, well, I'm being, abused from behind, but my father says it's okay. And because they've only ever known this type of violence, they have no idea that this is actually an act that should not be perpetrated on them. We've been able to educate over 3,000 girls in various secondary schools, and we've been able to see again a change with regards to not just their empowerment and their knowledge base, but the reporting of cases back to the WARIF Center. With tertiary students, the idea was to go into these schools, recognize that sex for grades is something that is familiar with most of us, and try and change that narrative. We've implemented the first ever online classroom on the prevention of campus sexual violence. We've had to date almost 6,300 students from over 187 institutions across Nigeria. And we're hoping to expand this to include all students in any tertiary institution across the country. With our community service, we recognize that Nigeria is not Lagos and Abuja and Port Harcourt only. 54% of us live in rural areas that have no access to our social media platforms, have no access to the WARIF Center and other rape crisis centers. So we take the programs to them. The Gatekeepers Project identifies stakeholders in these rural communities. The traditional birth attendant is one that's familiar to most. These are informally trained men and women that offer healthcare in these rural communities. We've been able to train over 1,800 of these traditional birth attendants as first responders against cases of gender-based violence. And they now understand how to identify how to treat and how to refer the cases. Under this Gatekeepers project, we also recognize law enforcement as our secondary gatekeepers. And we also appreciate that workshops to sensitize law enforcement so they understand the importance of processes, referral, and the way and manner in which you receive a rape survivor is important. And we'll be able to do this across the country with over 900 law enforcement officers. Our last gatekeeper, the religious leaders. Living in Africa, Nigeria, you cannot ignore the important role a traditional or religious leader serves. They're natural mediators in many communities. And so by engaging them in workshops and understanding where they stand within the cases and how we can change their narrative to become more aligned with ours is what we've been able to accomplish. During the COVID-19, many of us recognized that cases went up because more women and girls were trapped at home with abusers. We had a 64% increase, for instance, in call rates in the first wave of the COVID pandemic. We galvanized our traditional birth attendants that I spoke of previously to go back into the communities. And in the first year of 2020 of the pandemic, we were able to reach almost 150,000 individuals. Empowerment programs are also an area that we focus on, recognizing that economic constraints is one of the primary reasons why women stay in homes of violence. And so we offer basic financial literacy skills and vocational skills to disenfranchised women, girls, and families. These skills include wig making like that seen in the picture and other simple vocational skills acquisition. We have been to quite a few disenfranchised communities in different parts of Nigeria, one of which is Makoko, where we were able to sensitize 200 women and girls. Outreach programs, we push for them continuously across all states, encouraging different target audiences to listen to why rape culture is now prevalent in our environment, what we need to do to change it, and hopefully shift that needle in changing the narrative of many of the young girls, women, and boys and men that are survivors of gender-based violence. It would be remiss of me not to end without discussing two other important activities that we implement. One is our War If No Tolerance March. This is an in-person physical activity that is held on the first Saturday of every year. This year, it'll be on the 4th of December in 2021. It's held in 4 different locations on 4 different continents, in Lagos, London, in New York, and in Sydney. The Lagos March is on December 4th across the Lagos-Ikoyi Link Bridge, starting at 7 a.m. And we encourage everyone to please join us. Our previous marches have had over 800 people and counting. Last but not the least, important information I would like to share is our toll-free line. So we have a confidential 24-hour line that we activated again at the inception of the War If Center. We've been able to access women from all parts of Nigeria, and the phone line is manned by qualified psychologists as well as counselors. Earlier on in the year, it was our intention to allow everyone to be able to access this phone line free of charge. And so we started working towards getting a toll-free line as our 24-hour helpline. I'm very pleased to say that this has come to pass, and we now have a toll-free line that is available to all. I think at this point in time, I will stop because Ayo warned me that it has to be under 10 minutes, which I think I've been able to accomplish, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, Kemi. So I think I may have been among the earlier people who spoke with Kemi at the beginning of this work, and it never ceases to amaze me just how much is being done. Thank you very much for the excellent work you're doing. I see kudos, thank yous, well done. I don't see a single question. Ladies, I know that it's clear as mud But if there are any questions, and if you want to reach Kemi confidentially or even have access to one of these, the information is still displayed on the screen. But I think it's the numbers that throw me every time, to think that 1 in 4 young women has had a violent sexual encounter is unfortunate. Senior MEC is asking, sex for grades, do you plan to engage lecturers as well? You're muted, Kemi. You're still muted.
I am.
Yes, now you're not. We can hear you. Oh, you're muted again.
You're still muted.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so in response to Senior MEC's question, yes, what we do is when we engage universities, we actually create a response team that include both student bodies and the school authority. And the idea is first to establish what's available in the school. Sometimes you do have existing protocols that may not be functioning, and the idea is to strengthen those. And in colleges that don't have any at all, then we actually create, if you will, a hierarchy and a reporting method that they can then, lean on in cases of sex for grades. So yes, we always ensure that not just the student body, but the school authorities also play an active role.
Thank you. Chief Igodalo is asking, can we have the toll-free line again? But I think that's what's on the screen.
So
and Peju says, awesome, the toll-free line changes the game for accessing support, and it does. It really does. Thank you very much for this. This is a number that we should actually have on our QCOG website as well, because this is not just supporting Kemi's work. It goes be supporting all of the work that is so very much needed across the continent. We know that we had a serious issue in QC a few years ago. And so this is a really important line. It's also telling that this center is in Yaba. Yeah, Kemi mentions that this is the epicenter. I truly do agree. This is one of the oldest areas. QC is also in Yaba, but it's an important place to have this center because of the accessibility. If you think about accessing Yaba from the mainland, from the island, and very many different parts of Lagos, and with the bus terminals and all, this is a really important location. Thank you for all the hard work and the thinking that went into setting this center up, Kemi. So we're going to leave that on for a minute, and then the number will continue to be available if there are any more questions. Okay, Senior Kariba Braid is asking, are the victims protected against future repercussions of reporting an abusive abuser, especially if they're still around such people? That's a very good question. Kemi.
It is a very good question, and that therein lies the challenge, and it's not just found in our environment, that's across the world. When you're working in a space where typically the abuser is someone that's close to you, this could be a family member, for instance, or a spouse, and then you decide you're going to report this individual, we can go through the legal framework of ensuring that you're removed from the abusive environment. Unfortunately, time and time again, you have the family getting involved, and then you have sidebar family meetings. And the next thing you know, you have survivors wanting to recant. So protecting a survivor really is, dependent upon how much that survivor would like to leave that environment. Because you can only do so much by physically removing the survivor from the abusive space. You can then ensure that the legal framework is then taken advantage of, and you can report the abuser. But then if the survivor either recants or unfortunately sometimes goes back into the space, say for instance in a marriage, then there's very little you can do. I think what I would leave this point by saying is that whatever the case and how many times she goes back, it is still our responsibility to stand with her and to be available to assist her each time that she finds that strength to leave that space.
Thank you, Kemi. I'm sorry. Thank you very much indeed. So this line is a line for the whole of Nigeria to be able to.
Correct.
It's for everyone. I thought, right, and Her Excellency Dr. Zainab Shinkafi Bagudu has also said, and sharing the school too, yes, I think young people and old people should have access to this line. And the fact that it's a toll-free line means that they don't have to worry about paying for this service. So thank you very much. So we're going to go on to the panel to discuss cancer in women. Please, can everybody make sure that they have this line? I'm going to read out the number again. It's 0800 921 0000. That's 4 zeros together, 9. 0800 921 0009. 0009. Four zeros together, and then 9. All right. So, it's time to bring in the biggest masquerades of all. It is truly my pleasure to introduce, in no particular order, if Ayo has an order, she'll let us know in a minute. We're going to project the bios so that I'll just do online and take my, yes, go ahead. Move on to the next slide, please. So Dr. Modupe Elebute Odunsi is a Queen's College Old Girl, class of 1979. She's a consultant hemato-oncologist and co-founder and CEO of Marcel Ruth Cancer and Specialist Hospital in Victoria Island, Lagos. This is a one-stop comprehensive cancer center and specialist hospital in Lagos, which houses state-of-the-art technology, including West Africa's first true beam linear accelerator radiotherapy machine, and where she leads a team of almost 70 staff. Dr. Modupe Elebute Odunsi, you are welcome. Thank you for joining us. Next slide, please. I'll be introducing, I believe it's...
Thank you.
Next slide. Who's doing our slides with us? Thank you. Dr. Denise Ejo is a class of 1982. She's the founder and CEO of Cormode Cancer Foundation. She's an education specialist who is living with breast cancer with brain metastasis. Cormode Cancer Foundation went live was founded in 2018 and went live during the COVID pandemic at the start of the lockdowns. CCF runs a cancer awareness program on AIT during prime time and a monthly cancer prevention talk with different cancer specialists and different radio jingles in different languages. And it's instructive that it was during one such, I believe it was Senior Faculty, I was listening to one of these and said we had to actually get her on here. Next slide. Her Excellency Dr. Zainab Shinkafi Bagudu is Queen's College Old Girl, class of 1984. She's a pediatrician and she's the First Lady of Kebbi State and founder, CEO of Medicaid Cancer Foundation. Medicaid Cancer Foundation provides support to guide people through the cancer experience and bring them together to fight cancer. They organize annual cancer walks to raise awareness and drive community cancer campaigns for underserved communities across the country, driving prevention and providing education with empathy, consideration, respect, honesty, and responsibility. Dr. Zainab Shinkafi Bagudu, you are welcome. I did not say Dr. Denise Ejo, you are welcome. Please forgive me. Welcome. And Dr. Jimeta Tuko is a consultant radiation and clinical oncologist at FMC, that's a Federal Medical Center in Kebbi. Many of you may recognize the name, the Jimeta name. I'm told that she had at least one older, perhaps two older sisters in Q, so I certainly remember Fatima Jimeta. Dr. Jimeta Tuko, you are also very welcome to this segment. So I'm going to start by asking Your Excellency, Dr. Zainab Bagudu Shinkafi, you're a trained pediatrician, but you've committed all this time and energy to the Cancer Foundation focused on women. Tell us how and why you made the connection, the leap. And if you don't mind, please also tell us some of the difficulties you've encountered managing women with various, or tell us some of the difficulties or the concerns that you have as you have worked in this space.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for asking me to speak here. Good evening, Doctors Tuko, Jemai, and Denise. Indeed, I have been in the cancer advocacy space for the last 13 years. I started it really after I came back to Nigeria and found that there was a gap in knowledge and also in facilities and care of people living with cancer. Most of all, practicing in northern Nigeria, seeing children, I realized that the knowledge that most of the mothers had was very poor, considering that breast and cervical cancer are the commonest cancers in Nigeria, breast in the world. I felt that there was a need to offer some education to our women on this. So we started by organizing just open evenings where we would just sit around, have tea, and talk about breast health. And then it expanded gradually beyond that. It wasn't a formal foundation at first. We had to eventually register one so that we could cope with everything. Of course, as we ask women, we teach them about it. We tell them to screen, do your pap smears, do your breast exams, and they find something, they would come back and say to us, what should I do next? So navigating them through the continuum of care became something that Medicaid Cancer Foundation grew into, supporting treatment, offering the diagnostic tests that they need, and then also policy, working with government to improve policies that will help our cancer patients, such as including cancer care in the NHIS to a better degree, and providing funding for indigent cancer patients, advocating for better hospital facilities, better care. I also lead the First Ladies Against Cancer, which is an organization that is made up of spouses of current and former governors, and we partner with different bodies like the Marcel Ruth Cancer Center as well to ensure that we're able to filter down these messages to our states. I think the biggest problem that I face in both the platform of being the First Lady of a state and being an advocate, as well as a doctor, is just simply lack of awareness and poor education and knowledge. And this is not limited to the rural areas. It cuts across all the spectrum of people that I meet, even the educated middle class women and men tend to display a lot of poor knowledge and tend to, there's health-seeking behavior needs a lot of work and improvement. We've been at this for 13 years, like I said, but every day I get amazed at the sites that I see, and I'm sure Dr. Odunsi and Dr. Tupu can confirm that this type of masses that we see that turn up in our hospitals in the 21st century, and we're still seeing women with really bad fungating masses in the capital of the state, in the capital of the country, in Lagos, you know. So they come and you wonder, where have you been? And they tell you, oh, I went to church, I went to the herbalist, I went here, there. And sometimes even when you start, they will drop treatments. Right now, I have one of my staff who works very closely with us in the Medicaid Cancer Foundation. She's been with us for over 6 years. She was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she's just opted for the food diet. So whilst we can say that, yes, alternative health, there are some healthy diets that will help, and maybe Denise will tell us a bit more about that, but you also have to get the right care. You have to get what you need there. All our faith, all our books of faith tell us how we always say we have faith, we believe in God, we go to the church, but the Bible tells you that faith without works is dead. In the Quran, there's so many verses about tying your camel before you pray to God. You don't just pray to God to look after your camel and you run away. You have to tie it or it will run away. So this thing, it really bothers me, and I can speak all night about it, but the level of poor knowledge that I see displayed is amazing. It doesn't matter how much the government provides for people, it doesn't matter how much you try NGOs and you support them. If they don't come, then what's the point? If they don't come on time, we're diagnosing most of our cancers in late stages. So I think that's the biggest problem that I see. And of course, the most challenging thing to patients is funding, how to fund that care.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Zainab Shikafi Bagudu. Thank you. So Dr. Zainab has told us about the education, the health-seeking behavior of individuals. This is something that many doctors across Nigeria are familiar with. Unless your brain is literally pouring out blood, most Nigerians just don't believe it's time to go to hospital yet. The lack of awareness. So even when people see a mass, I've seen women with 4-year-old masses that are not fungating, but the breast is bigger and she can feel a rock in her breast and she doesn't want to make her children afraid. And so she doesn't say anything about it. And seeking of alternative health, which we want to ensure that we're complementing care properly as opposed to saying it's one or the other. And so I'd like to come to you, Dr. Jimeta Tuko. Dr. Zainab has just told us about some of the difficulties that they see on the field, but you are right there in the oncology center. What are some of your difficulties? Where are you beginning to encounter difficulties managing women with the various cancers? So I know that you obviously take care of beyond breast and cervical cancer, and you're also in Kebbi State. And then how have you addressed these?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here with everyone. Well, that's a good question to start. Women living with cancers, that it really doesn't matter what kind of cancer. I realize that in my practice, not just here in KB, but sometimes some of the experiences that have been shared from my colleagues across the nation, there are certain unique challenges that are common to women living with cancer. So in my little experience, some of the issues that do affect women living with cancer are issues bordering on body image issues. For instance, a woman who has to go through mastectomy, for instance, or a woman who has to go through chemotherapy and has to go through, having to lose her hair and all of that. So body image issues have, been common, one of the commonest issues we have with women living with cancer. Then also, we also have issues bordering on fertility. Sometimes, or well, a good number of times, the chemotherapy we give have what we say they have gonadotoxic effects, so that they do impair fertility. So these women are sometimes unable to have children after they are done with their treatment. So we do sometimes always have to, have that discussion to say, look, you are going to go through this treatment, either chemotherapy or radiotherapy, especially the pelvic radiotherapy, and you may have challenges having children after the treatment. So, how do you intend to how do you intend to cope with this? Some women say, well, I've had all my children. I think I'm done with my reproductive career. I really don't mind. Some say, look, I do mind. We're a young couple. I haven't started having children. I need to have this sorted out. So we do have to have that discussion with the patients. And we do give them what we call like an ovarian protection, where we use gonadotropin releasing hormone agonists to be able to protect the ovaries against the harmful effects of chemotherapy. Then we also, for those who can afford it, we sometimes do refer them to a fertility specialist. We don't have them, they're not readily accessible here in the country, but I think 1 or 2 centers in Nigeria are able to somewhat like, preserve the ovaries preserve the eggs for these women, so that when they're done with treatment and they intend to have children after treatment, they can do so. Other issues are sexuality, of course, which is really very important, especially women who have pelvic cancers, has cancers. Pardon? Okay, that's especially women who have cervical cancer, cancers of the uterus, the vagina, the vulva. So of course, it really does go without saying that these issues are definitely going to come up. So that's really what I do when I see my patients the first time. I really try to insist on them coming along with their partners or their spouses, or anybody that they do feel confident sharing their health-related information with. So, we have that discussion before treatment starts to say, okay, these are some of the things that you're going to expect. And, by the time we also talk to the carers are also able to give that support. When I started working in KB, it was a bit difficult getting a cancer support group. So sometimes I used to call patients who were on treatment to speak to the new patients to say, look, could you help relate your story to help this patient go through it? But somewhere along the line, we had an initiative which was facilitated by Her Excellency Dr. Zainab, and it's the One Call Away program, where patients, women living with cancer, especially those on treatment, are able to, be in a cancer support group and speak to other women who are also going through treatment for cancer. Sometimes it may be a bit difficult for a patient to, yes, she hears what you're saying as a doctor. She knows you're a physician, but she just feels, oh, well, you really don't know what I'm going through. You're just speaking from your perspective as a doctor. But when she's able to hear firsthand from someone who's going through what she's going through, she's better able to relate. So I have attended those sessions, and it's unbelievable. There are some things that they say in those sessions that they do not say in the clinic. So it really, those are the things that have really, really been helpful and has helped, the patients open up. So yes, the cancer support group is something that we should have across across Nigeria. Many public institutions do not have the cancer support group, and it's really sad, but it's needed, because it helps the woman to relate and express herself better. And I would say by and large, it helps her cope better with the cancer journey.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I am learning on the go. Thank you for that. I think a lot of the time, even as a pediatrician, as doctors, as other doctors will tell you, our thinking is that everybody's thinking about survival. But there are immediate things that happen to women: loss of hair, loss of sexuality, or loss of the ability to have babies, body image issues. I don't think it occurs to people that these things are the things that are probably front and center of women's minds when they are starting to deal with a cancer diagnosis, and it's time to start thinking about treatment. So thank you. So one of our takeaways from this is that cancer support groups, like with many other things that we do, it's kind of amazing that we think about sickle cell support groups and we think about other chronic care support groups, diabetes, but we don't necessarily always think about cancer care support groups. And like you said, you will learn from your patients. Sitting on one of those support group meetings, like when we sit with our women who just had babies, you will learn all kinds of things. This is really fabulous. I hope people are taking notes. I certainly am. So thank you, Dr. Jumeta Tuko. I'm going to come to you, Senior Dr. Modupe. I love saying that. You came home after a long and hugely successful career in the UK. And I mean, for many of us, Marcel Ruth it was an image we saw first on our QCOG chat group because it was going to come, but we didn't know how to dare think it was coming up, and then it came up. Please share with us what your motivations were for coming and setting up this really beautiful, I've been there, beautiful and obviously state-of-the-art center. And how has your vision been realized thus far?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me this evening. My motivation, I mean, to be honest, I think is one of those decisions or thoughts that one has when you reach a significant birthday. So I was about to turn 50 and I was sitting chatting to my husband and saying, I'd been in the UK for over 30 years. He had been for over 40 years because he went to university there. And what were our plans for the future? Where did we want to see ourselves retiring? And it became very clear to me that, coming back home was important. But if I came back home, I also wanted to come to contribute, to do something. And listening to all the other people on today with, Kemi Da Silva Ibru, with Zainab Shinkafi Bagudu, I mean, it's incredible what we women can bring to the table. For me, obviously, coming from a family where we were already involved in private healthcare in Lagos in particular, I'd had some experience of what was going on. But I think what was really, really a big issue for me was to set up something where patients could come and get everything in one place. Because one of the issues, and we've discussed a number very quickly, why do patients not continue with their treatment? Why do they not actually deal with the problem? And yes, there are cultural issues, there are religious issues, but from a medical point of view, we mustn't forget that actually we don't have a cohesive healthcare service in this country, particularly in the public sector. You don't have the National Health Service that's going to write you a note and tell you to do your mammogram when you turn 40, remind you, encourage you, or for the men to do their PSAs and so on. And even when patients actually do approach for treatment, like Dr. Tuko just said, they're scared, they're anxious, they don't have that support. And then just then think about the fact that a patient that has to go to one place for their blood test, go somewhere else for their imaging, and then find the surgeon somewhere else. There's no one putting this whole thing together for them in a way that is conducive to actually making sure that they will want to progress with treatment, and also that the outcomes are so much better. We have data that shows that if someone can be treated in the same place, have everything done in the same place, the trust that they have in the medical care and all the people that are looking after them is significantly better. So that was where my vision came from, developing a one-stop shop, and that's what we've done at Marcel Ruth. Under one roof, we're able to screen patients, so we've got we can diagnose cancers or other specialist conditions, and we can treat. And in particular, because we're talking about cancer at this point, we can offer surgery, which is required for more than 40–50% of the patients, chemotherapy and radiotherapy all in one place. And that has made such a big difference. We also have counseling sessions. We have got printed information leaflets for patients which are not available in most places. So we do everything in one place, and I think that really makes a difference. I want us to just point out that we came into this conversation without the background, you know, like the 200 million Nigerian people. And if you look at even communicable diseases and even COVID, the deaths from cancer still remain one of the highest. And in particular in women, even from the registries that we have, and we know that the data is not secure because we know we're not collecting it all the time. But if you look at 2018 data from WHO, we lost at least 250,000 women to breast cancer, and another almost 200,000 to cervical and endometrial cancer, which is the second biggest killer of cancers in women. So breast, cervical, endometrial cancers are really an issue in this region. And as we say, patients are presenting later, but we are doing a lot. And I can already, I've only been back for a year. One thing I can say to you is I am incredibly amazed. I knew there was a gap. We did some research. We thought there was a gap. But actually, when you say, what has the vision been like, I'm blown away. You know, in the 10 months that we've been operational, we have seen 600 brand new cases of cancer in one building. And this goes from quite, you know, common cancers to very unusual cancers. And our main vision was to come back to treat patients to international standards. Because that's the other thing I want to say, is that somehow we've lost the way in, I think, both education and in healthcare, where we don't seem to understand that the patient or the client is central to what we're doing. We need to offer them the best, the very, very best in country. You don't have to get on a plane to go abroad to get good treatment. You should be able to have that best treatment here. And particularly with cancer, that's not the time to be leaving your family. That's not the time to be going away and be on your own just with one person to support you. That's, you know, that is the time of anxiety for a woman with young children, and for women who was probably even contributing to the financial well-being of the family. She feels she can't work. So one of the things that we're very, very proud of here at Marcel Ruth is the fact that within 48–72 hours, we can get all the investigations done. Patients are stunned when we say, yes, this is the diagnosis. And then we have what we call a tumor board. We're very, very grateful to our colleagues who are abroad, who are ensuring that we are actually working to international standards. Once a week, we have 4 other consultants from Canada, from the UK, from America, who for no fee at all, just people who have been friends and who are very supportive, who go through the cases with us. So we know that whether you're having your treatment here or you go abroad, that is exactly what you should be having. And then we very quickly make sure that the patients have a separate counseling session with the very senior nurses. We've got 3 well-trained oncology nurses, 2 who came back from abroad, and they seen separately, and just like all these issues to be dealt with, so that they have time to think about it. They speak to other patients, and then when they proceed with their treatment, the biggest thing for me that I'm very proud of right now is that we're encouraging our patients to remain at work, to remain doing what they normally do by making sure that they can have appointments as early as possible in the morning or as late in the evening, whether it's chemotherapy or radiotherapy, so that they can continue to work. And it's made such a major, major difference already. So yes, the vision was to come home to provide international standards of care in Lagos for Nigerian patients. However, I'm also very proud to say that we are now getting patients coming from outside Nigeria. We've got, in the last few months, patients from Liberia, patients from Sierra Leone, who are actually getting Nigerian visas to come and get treatment here. So if that's not reversing the medical tourism business, yes, yeah, and super excited to be back and to be able to contribute to changing the narrative and working with other colleagues on this platform and otherwise to try and make this happen.
Thank you so much, Senior Dr. Modupe. So as you spoke, I thought about the fact that when women have to stop work and go away from Nigeria to get cancer care, there's a phenomenal amount of disruption that people don't think about.
Absolutely.
The family finances and the family stability. And then it may also affect the way, who was going to go to school where, who was going to be getting what done. You don't think about it. And then to be alone at what is probably one of the most difficult times of your life is not on. So having the ability to drive, fly, or walk down to a center within your country where this is one-stop shop and everything can be provided there. I always remember as a young resident in Luz, where we would say to the woman, go and pay on the 5th floor, then come down here, do the blood here, then we'll go to this other place. And it happens everywhere. We don't think about it, how patients are at the center of everything that we do, and we should put their care and their comfort first. So thank you for this amazing work. Thank you. And I'm very grateful that you sort of took this important decision at a pivotal moment in your life, and you decided Nigeria was worth the investment. We always say Nigerian patients are worth it, but 600 in the space of 1 year, brand spanking new cancer cases is alarming because it means those people were just waiting.
Yes.
Waiting.
And let me just to say very quickly also, I've been really surprised and alarmed by the amount of positive family history in patients. So almost every patient we see here has a brother, a sister. It's incredible compared to my practice when I was in the UK for over 30 years. I mean, normally, it's just to put it in context. If I saw 100 patients before in the UK, maybe 5, 6 might have a family. Here, almost everybody has a family member who has cancer. Colorectal cancer, young age. And when you ask, yes, my brother, my sister, and even in the same family. So this week, as a lady who's just come back from Canada with brain tumor, her brother is under my care with secondary AML. Her sister has had a history of breast cancer. So the other thing we're doing, we've set up a biodata bank. We've got a -80-degree freezer. We're going to collect data and blood samples and on these patients. And we're working, I've just come back from the US, where we're collaborating in research to make sure that in a few years' time, hopefully, we'll be able to bring why are we having these cancers? Why are we having so many patients with gallbladder, pancreatic cancers, in young women? We have young women with lung cancer who have never smoked. I have my whatever about generators, but I'm not saying anything. What we need to begin to answer those questions now, because also we have to not forget that the drugs that we're using now, and we haven't touched about cost. I know Dr. Bagudi mentioned it, but apart from costs, we are using in our patients drugs that are designed for the Caucasian population. So when we sit back and we say breast cancer is more aggressive in the Black population, prostate cancer is more aggressive in the Black population, the drugs that we're using were designed for the Caucasian population. So we need to also come to the table. And that's where someone like Marcel Ruth, having that number of patients, hopefully will be able to do that. I'm going to make one more point, which is that when I walk into the building every day, I realized just how much work we put into designing a center that was going to be healing almost the minute the patients walk in. We've got colors, everywhere. We've got, photographs taken by my husband, by, all over the place of Lagos City. We wanted to make sure that the place didn't feel like a hospital that would put people off, but somewhere where they could come to and be reassured and really promote healing. And I also think that, yes, it took us a lot of time and a lot of effort and money and everything else, but I think that it was very much needed. And like I said, whatever vision I thought I had, multiplied by 50 already. And so super, super glad to be able to be trying to help a bit here.
Thank you very much. There's a quick question I want you to answer. Do you have a PET CT machine in your hospital?
No, we don't. And there is no PET CT in West Africa at the moment. There is news that there might be one coming on board, and we are hoping in our next phase of development in the next 18 months to have one. But the nearest PET CT at the moment is actually in Kenya. But we managed to bring a true beam linear accelerator into the country. Everybody told us we will never do it. We did it. So watch this space. There is that one more piece to the jigsaw. And yes, it will, we're all working very hard to try and make that happen.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Dr. Denise Ejo, but I just want to make a quick point about something that Dr. Odunsi said, which we must not forget, is that we have far more family history of cancer here than she has seen in her experience working in the UK. And when you think about cancer, when I think about how we were taught about cancer, yes, there's a strong genetic component, but there's probably a two-hit theory. So there's something else that is making us also have exposure and have higher incidences within families. And I think that's an important thing. So when you have a sibling who's had a cancer, you have to take your screening seriously. And it is not something that you should think about, maybe we'll do it. It's something you must do, because in some of us, it may just be a matter of time. And the earlier you detect many cancers, and Dr. Bagudu has referred to that in the charts, the earlier you detect many cancers, the more likely you are to knock them out. So cervical cancer is one cancer we can eliminate with vaccination, screening, and treatment of early lesions. And all of it truly can happen at the primary healthcare level. But again, as Dr. Odusi said, we don't have that backbone, that's primary healthcare behavior, that primary health, somebody talked about health-seeking behavior. I think that was Dr. Jimeta Tuku, health-seeking behavior. And then we don't have the established, strong primary healthcare or an NHIS that is doing what the NHS does in the UK. So to a large extent, a lot of this is the ball is in our courts, and we must not drop the ball. That's not to say that government and the private sector and the non-profit sector will not do what they need to, but we've got to take personal responsibility. That's why we're having this conversation. So I'm going to continue running through the charts, but I would like Dr. Denise Ejo to please tell us. Dr. Denise Ejo, you have a compelling story about living with cancer. You have a few things to share with us. She's laughing.
First thing first,
diagnosed and what
I must hail the doctors. I may be doctor, but doctor is doctor. I'm an academic. I'm not a medical doctor. So
yes.
I always like to differentiate it, because medics have had me and them have a nice time. So yes, doctors in the house. I'm not a doctor or medical doctor. Let me tell you the story. One of the reasons why this is interesting is a lot of things that has been shared by the medics. I actually put my hats off to them. I was diagnosed with cancer in 2016. And one of the interesting parts of it for me was the fact that I was diagnosed just because I had a headache. And that is one thing that makes me take this journey very seriously, because it all stemmed from a headache, a persistent headache that just did not go. Fortunately or unfortunately, sometimes it depends on how we as human beings look at things. I luckily had, my mom's late now, but she had cancer. And I learned from her very quickly the need for, what do you call it? For understanding that when something's persistent, there's a problem. And that's one message I try to give out now. If you have a persistent anything, please do not ignore it, persistent. So I was diagnosed from a headache with breast cancer. The first diagnosis I got, I was apparently supposed to be terminal. I'm 5 years on, but I was supposed to be terminal. I can understand why in hindsight, because like I said, I'm not a medic, but I presented for 3 tumors on site on the inception. That was what I came up to show the whole world. How did that now go? So let me actually go from August 2016. I was diagnosed with breast cancer metastasizing in the brain. By the end of that month, I was going to have brain surgery. I had the first brain surgery, which was a cut in the brain, and that one revealed that I did have cancer. And it did, apparently, I learned also, like I said, I'm not a medic, that once you find more than one tumor in the brain, it is cancer. When it's a single one, it can be benign. So I didn't know that, but I learned that. Like I said, I've learned so many things. And by October, I was having gamma knife radio brain surgery. So they call it gamma knife surgery. Medics know what it is, but it's radiation. I think that's what they call it. Radiation. I don't know. I'm not a medic. I always say that. But I did have that. And by the time we cut in September and got to October, I had presented another tumor in the brain. So they were now removing three through gamma knife. We were doing all these PET tests, all the scans and everything. They could not actually find the breast cancer, but the biopsy had told them I had breast cancer. But it was continuously, and it still continuously presents in my brain. So I had 4 tumors already removed by Christmas of 2016. By 2017, I started chemo, which was not a very, very easy journey. But like I'll say to anybody, where there's life, there's hope. No matter how hard chemo can be, I learned also from my specialist nurses or the teams that I've worked with that put at the back of your mind that chemo does not kill. It is every other thing that comes with the sickness, with the experience that can kill. I'm not a medic, so it's the things that medics always convince you on how to go forward, and I like them for that. So I had to go through chemo. I finished chemo, I think about June, July, because I ended up being neutropenic. I told you, I learned, gosh, me and doctors, we can have serious discussions now. Neutropenic means that I think it means no white blood cells or no some blood cells. Then I had to change my chemo. I went on to another one. But by the end of the year, the tumors, we finished that. It was supposed to be all clear. And by the end of the year, the tumors had gone back in the brain. The following year, I had another 4 tumors removed via gamma knife. And I really did hope at that time that it would stop, because I could see the scans, and the scans showed that you can see the dots where they remove it. If the consultants show you, you can see them. It makes sense. It's not rocket science. So I was very happy with myself, and not long after that, it had grown again. So by 2019, by the end of 2018, I was going to have another cut. So I don't know the terms they use. So one gamma knife, the other one, they cut it, but I don't know how medics can tell you how they use the term. Can you please tell us the term, the one where you have the real cut?
Sorry, what was that? The one where
What's
you have
the name of the cuts, that they cut when they cut the brain? and the cut. So I've had the cut.
Craniotomy.
Thank you.
Craniotomy.
I told you, I'm not a medic. I'm an education person.
You're doing very well. You're doing very well, Dr. Ejo. You're doing very well. Well done.
So I had that one in 2019. That was one that, to be fair, it was one of the hardest times because for me, I always find this thing, it's a joke. It's just funny. I look tired today. Sorry, it's because I had chemo on Thursday. So I'm actually feeling the knock-on effects now. And I had that one, and that was a 7.5 hour removal. The biggest concern they had at the time was I could lose my sight. And to be honest, I had lost my sight when I first got diagnosed at the first cranial, whatever they call it. I had lost my sight then, but it came back. So I was fully aware the second time that I was at risk of really losing it. And I did lose one. I know that the tumor I have is on the left side. But I know the left side of, I don't see very well from my left side, okay? So the doctors know what I'm talking about. And it's now called living, I now am deemed as living with cancer. Living with cancer is interesting because I will take chemo for the rest of my life. It is also, it means that I'm trying to use the right words. So I don't scare anybody, because I'm also going to tell you the good parts of this. So please don't worry about this part. I'm trying to be focused with facts. It's interesting because living with cancer means I take immunotherapy and chemotherapy at the same time, and I take it every day. So it limits a lot of the things I can do. Because I have had 11 tumors now removed from my brain. There are mobility challenges and other challenges. I can now see with both eyes, but it's not with very clear on one side. Now, with this experience, there was one of the key things that came up for me, which was very important. And that was when I was diagnosed, my mother, who was once the senior body house mistress in Queen's College for 12 years, had taught me very clearly that there are certain things you don't give up on. So by the time I was finding myself in this journey, I asked that what was I supposed to do with it? Because if I was just going to die from it, honestly, to be honest, I was ready. I'd rather die than this journey. To be honest, that was how I felt. And I was not prepared to be afraid. So I'm trying to say to people that no matter what cancer, because a lot of people are facing cancer and they don't want to talk about it. No matter how it looks, you need to have the correct mindset. It's the mindset that makes the significant difference. And it was from there, a lot of my friends who are in 82 set supported me, and I launched during COVID the Commode Cancer Foundation. And predominantly we talk like this on Zoom, and a lot of people can ask questions about it. And I don't need to know who you are. You don't need to know, you can cover your face on the screens. But the fact that you can ask the questions, people can ask and know what, and get correct advice on when you need to go and seek help. Cancer has, unfortunately, and I've had to learn to appreciate, understand it, it does come with stigmatization, which many people don't know about. And it comes with people starting to think very carefully, especially as you get older anyway, the importance of things like wills. We don't like to hear it in Nigeria, but we need to hear it, because a lot of people won't talk about cancer because it's stigmatization. It is stigmatization. I'm sorry to say, no matter what you say, it is, especially in the Black Afro-Caribbean communities globally. It is not just about Nigeria, it's everywhere. You are told why you shouldn't say anything. You are told why, don't accept. You are told, you are told so many things you do not really want to be told. And then when you want to talk to people, always make sure you get the correct advice. There is medical science advice and there is faith advice. People will always go with, it is not my portion. I listen to that for many, and it's sad when I hear it, because it's not about being anybody's portion. At a point, somebody said, what did you do to God? I mean, that is the feeling that a lot of cancer sufferers go through, which is why we don't want to talk. The first time I ever had to talk, one of my classmates, I don't know if she's on, Evan, was with me that day, and she said, if you don't say it, then nobody will say it. I know, and I was very anxious about going live to start talking about cancer as a patient, because the things that started crossing my mind is maybe you just die now that you've said it. But the truth is, we have to talk about it. And for those medics, I give them a hats off. I'm not going to lie. And in Nigeria, no matter what anybody says, you guys are doing a fantastic job, because I'm very, very quick to refer people all over Nigeria to say, look, go to this clinic, go to that clinic, they will help you. I'm not a medic, and I don't run I only run an awareness campaign. I am not a recommender of doctors or hospitals, but anybody that I know that provides the service, I will send you people there. And that is fundamentally because even my children suffered at this time. And why? Why did my youngest child was 12 years old when I was diagnosed, and I had to look after her. So I know if anybody's going through, or you have family going through cancer, what we do want from you, and I'm going to be honest with you, is just love us. Don't tell us what to do. Don't tell us how to do it. Don't tell us what to eat. Because a lot of the time we can't eat what you think we should be eating. If we follow your instructions, we will not eat. That's the truth. So it's just, I think, let me stop there. I think I've said it. But yeah, a lot of facts you can find, and the information is all on Common Cancer Foundation. You can find that information, and it gives you an idea. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you very much. I think you certainly did. You answered my first and my second question. Dr. Ebu Fatiregun Abashi has raised her hand, and I do recall Dr. Denise had spoken about her. Dr. Ebu, you have a minute, because we are running out of time. We promised people will be done at 7. It's 7:30. Please go ahead. And thank you for contributing. But we're not hearing you now. Okay.
Session.
Dr. Ebu.
Thank you for everything you have said. Many people through Denise and Denise's foundation have linked up with
So is it me, or is it Dr. Ebu's audio is okay now? I think okay, here you are, but now you're muted. So you have to unmute, Dr. Ebu. Okay.
Yes, I'm back. Thank you. And incidentally, I think it must be over 5 years. Many years ago, I actually linked up with Her Excellency Zainabu. I visited her center in Abuja, and yeah, I attended one of the fundraising sessions. What I just want to emphasize is the role of palliative care, and quite a lot of what people have said actually is in that area. Palliative care is ever so important. We use other terminologies now because people use palliative in Nigeria. Palliatives, the word palliative is used for people that need food or things like that, like handouts. So we talk about best supportive care. I want to emphasize that palliative care helps people to continue to live to the very end. I'm happy Dr. Elibute mentioned that aspect of care, so that even in spite of treatment, the symptoms are being managed. Because if you can just take the whole, cancer can be huge depending on where it is and what stage it is. But if you take it in bits, even in the administrative world, they say when you have a big problem, you cut it into small chunks. If you take it in bits and you say, what is this person suffering from? Sometimes we ask patients to rank their problems, their symptoms. Many times there is pain, but sometimes as a blessing, there is no pain, but there are other things. look at what Denise said, just incidental finding from headaches. And I dare say, with all due respect to all of the screening that is going on in the UK post-COVID, majority of the cases that we're seeing, even in palliative medicine, they are first time diagnosed in the metastatic phase in the UK. So many cases now, they're not going through the usual journey. So GPs are aware and everybody is being sensitized. It's not like before in medical school, we're told common things occur commonly. If somebody says they have a headache, how dare you think about cancer in somebody that is under 50? But now we're seeing it and it's so common. One episode of abdominal pain, somebody that's never been hospitalized before, by the time you run all the tests in a center like Marcel, Ruth, or in a good center, you find the diagnosis and you are even afraid to tell the patient. So the aspect of supporting through the treatment, the aspect of taking care of those little symptoms, the aspect of having this supportive network that has been mentioned by Dr. Janita, all of these things rolled together is actually what we do. In a place like Nigeria, where people are very, very sensitized in terms of their faith, wherever they go, the church, the mosque, or whatever, many times they don't want to talk about the possibility of dying. But we say, okay, if you just leave dying, how can we improve the quality of life? And how can we do it with you? I'll stop there so that I don't take over the conversation. But I just wanted to underscore the importance of working alongside patients and without terrifying, and working alongside helping with symptoms. Thank you very much, Dr. Dottie.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ebun. So I just want to quickly run through some of the things that we've learned today. First of all, we do have the opportunity to get screened as early as in primary care, and we should be getting our screens. Many of us on this call are approaching 40. Some of us may even have a family history. So we should not ignore the need for screening. But keep in mind also that apart from screening, you should not allow any symptom that hangs around for too long, to continue to hang around. So if you continue to have headaches, go back and tell them that these headaches are not going away. That's a really important thing. But also the opportunity to get one-stop treatment inside Nigeria is very available. And somebody had asked about costs. And I know that, to treat cervical cancer must be different cost from treating breast cancer. If you're asking about costs of, a doctor's visit, that's one thing. But I think that if people want to find out, the first thing they need to do is to go there and get a diagnosis should one be present before you can now start thinking about, obtaining the cost of care, the cost of treatment. And I always remind people that I think the most important thing is that this thing which you are so afraid of, you probably just find out first of all. Yes, if you can't afford it, that's when you're asking the cost. Okay, that's fine. Many of us cannot afford cancer care if we are true to ourselves. Okay. And then there is the importance of having support around us. So whether we have a cancer diagnosis in a friend or in a member of the family, the importance of being able to get treated and get cared for with support around. And somebody mentioned on the chat that, everything does not have to be about, it's not your portion. Really just people being around and supporting you, I think is very important. And Dr. Denise, I know you don't want to be called Dr. Denise, I'll just, okay, Senior Denise, a lot of people are thanking you for sharing your experience and saying you don't look like what you've been through, which I agree with. I love the energy and the joy that you brought into the call. You seem tired today. When we had our pre-call, she was at it with us. We had a great time. And she had warned us that she'd be tired because it would be post-chemotherapy. Tokumokowe says, my auntie didn't want to talk about it. And I think that's something that you brought up, not wanting to talk about it, people feeling and going through with stigma, it can be a real issue. And I think that as women, one of the things that we can begin to do for one another and for other women who are going through these journeys is to really be beside them, help them to talk about it, or get them into care that allows them to meet with specialists such as with Master Ruth, who can help them to talk about it. Obviously, Dr. Jumeta Toko is on the other end of Nigeria. If you think about where we are in Lagos and they're up in Kebbi, but care continues to be provided wherever you are. And I think it's important that we should use the opportunity of this network to provide this care. I'm going to have to start to wrap up because it's 7:45. We've run 40 minutes above. I will, because I have the moderator's microphone, give the last minutes to Dr. Kemi Babagbemi just because she's one of my sisters. She's a class of 86. She's also a radiologist working at the Cornell University in New York. Kemi, I hope I said that right. Please unmute yourself and make your comments, and then we will be wrapping up. I'm sorry, we can't take every single question, but I'm seeing that what we are having is a lot of comments, and one of them is, have a wellness check every year, go to a doctor if you have any symptom that doesn't go away. Kemi, go ahead. You're muted if you're speaking. And if you're not, I see your question that says, is there genetic testing available for breast cancer and ovaries? And that question will go to, I guess, Dr.
Yes.
Odunsi. The answer is yes?
Yes, there is.
Yes. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. So I see Senior Salamatu Suleiman's hand was up and then it went down. Senior Salamatu, if you are here, please ask your question. Please unmute yourself. I stopped seeing your hand.
Yes, I knew you were running out of time, so I just thought maybe I should let it be. I wanted to say it has been very, very awesome listening to all of you ladies and presenters, but I am particularly inspired by Dr. Dennis. When I saw her face first, I knew she was Mrs. Ejo's daughter because she resembles her so much. She was such a great boarding house mistress to all of us. And Denise, your story is so inspiring. I wish you well. I hope you get well. And thank you to everybody that has contributed. And I want to really congratulate the organizers. This is a very, very inspiring session. Keep it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senior Salamatu. I'm not going to spoil that by trying to do any more. This is fantastic. And Kemi was just saying she's unable to mute, but she works as a radiologist here at Weill Cornell, New York. Somebody did ask a question, having lost her mom to ovarian cancer, because ovarian cancer is usually not detected early, and she'd like to know what she should do. Is there some new research specific to this? She hears it can be hereditary and she wants to know what she can do. Dr. Odunsi, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So I think, if she's based in Nigeria, we are limited by, the sort of genetic tests that we can do locally, but we do collect samples and we send them abroad. What would be nice if she wanted to pop in, or, I'm not just selling myself Ruth here, or at least see an oncologist. You obviously they're the BRCA genes that can be tested for, but I think the best thing is for her to come and speak to somebody, because it'll be useful to know exactly, not just her mom, the rest of the family history and so on, to make sure that all the possible genes are looked for. But yes, there are a lot of genes and genetics. People are even trying to make them onto single discs now, where you can test for several genes. But absolutely, totally, she's correct. She mustn't leave it. She must actually speak to someone and get these investigations done. And particularly someone like her, she must have her pap smears done. It's not, like you said earlier on, it's no longer a maybe if, it must be a must. I know we've got to go, but I just want to make a point. Yesterday with somebody whose brother-in-law essentially dropped dead yesterday at age 58. Okay, and this person sitting there very, very overweight with, you know, your sort of typical, I mean, massive pot belly. You know, we don't need to be size 0. That's not the point. But when I was trying to say to him, look, when was the last time you saw a doctor? What's your blood pressure? You know, what's your BMI? He looked at me like I was, you know, from outer space. You know, we have to take our health into our hands. We've got, it's not just, cancer is one space, and we spent a lot of time about that. But also, I mean, when I start doing a talk, I say to all the women in the house, who knows what your blood pressure is, your normal blood pressure? Who knows what your blood sugar is? Who knows what their weight is and what your BMI is? You cannot ignore these things. We've got to look after ourselves. We're working hard, particularly as women, working hard with our careers, as a wife, as children. Look at Dennis, Dr. Ejo, unbelievable story. He's still carrying along her children, and we must look after ourselves. That's my end bit to the story.
You.
And Dr. Doherty, you've been amazing. Amazing moderator this evening. Well done. Well done.
Thank you very much. So I think Dr. Modupele Odusi just said something very important, and she answered a question that someone was asking, what are the tests that we should be doing? We should certainly know our blood pressure, know our blood sugar, know what our BMI is. That's a measure of whether you are cardiovascular, risk for cardiovascular disease or not. You certainly want to get a cervical smear, so a pap smear, or something we call a DIA, a screen for cervical cancer. You want to learn how to do your breast checks, and you get a mammogram after the age of 40. And then if you go to your primary center, whether you go to a primary care center or you go to one of the private hospitals around, almost everyone now has a women's wellness check, a list of things that they would have you do. And I would urge you to take advantage of those, or come into the QC OGA network, because that's what we're here for. We can certainly continue to guide you. With that, I'd like to say thank you very much to our amazing panel. You have been really wonderful. A lot of people are saying so many great things on the chat. Just to say thank you very much. This has been an amazing panel, and I think we need to do this much more. To Senior Denise, to Senior Modupe, to Jumai, and to Her Excellency Senior Zainab. Thank you very much. Thank you, Senior Ifeko, for insisting on this happening, and thank you, Ayo, for helping us get our act together. Thank you very much, everyone. And good night. And Dr. Ebu, thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. Just brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you. Looking forward to another invitation.
Thank you.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Thank you, Dr. Junior. Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Thank you, Senior Day.
Thank you. I'm trying to work it out.
Good night, ladies.
Let me come up.
Well done.